Hey, what is up, everyone? So, recently at the Xbox Game Showcase, we got a new trailer for Sea of Thieves, which showed off what we're getting for Sea of Thieves Season 17, which we now know is officially called Smugglers Tide. This trailer is all CGI, there's no like actual in-game footage of anything, but there is a lot that we can gather from it. So in this video what we're going to do is break down the trailer and talk about everything we know about this upcoming season. So starting off at the very beginning of the trailer, one of the things that really stood out to me here was you notice we have the Reaper rowboats here again that we had back in the adventure a few years ago. This is something that if you saw my Reaper wishlist video from a few weeks ago, I had wanted them to bring back for season 16, but for some reason they decided to hold it off until season 17. So it seems like those Reaper rowboats are making a return. I guess since this whole season's going to be focused on like gunpowder, kegs, and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of blowing things up, I guess it makes sense to hold off the rowboat for this, but a little bit of a weird decision in my mind. But we'll have to wait and see a little bit more for that. Jumping ahead a bit, you see when we get into this weapons cache thing that they have, where the weapons were stolen here and everything like that. You notice how we have the ammo crates that we're used to, and if you haven't seen these in the game before, maybe you're a little bit of a newer player, these are actual treasure items that you can find in the game. They usually are washed up on shore and that kind of stuff, and you can refill your ammo for your guns from these little crates. You can pick them up, you can take them wherever you want, put them on a rowboat, anything like that. I think what this scene right here is teasing the introduction of a weapon cache or like a portable weapon armory that we can carry with us and bring wherever we want, similar to how the ammo crates work. I think this will be really great and unlock a lot of potential. Imagine situations where, say, you either want to take your weapon armory with you on a rowboat, so you can carry this crate, put it on a rowboat, and then you can go sneak up to another ship and have all your weapons with you, and you can switch between them however you want. So maybe from a distance you're using your eye of reach, but then you're going to go and board them, so you switch to a blunderbuss. I think that can open up a lot of possibilities and be pretty cool. When I was doing a reaction to this trailer on the live stream, and if you want to, you can watch that again too if you want to hear more reaction style for this trailer. You can go check that out. But one of my original ideas when I saw this was that I thought it'd be pretty cool is, say, if you have the grapple gun and you're tucking at a skeleton fort, you have the towers at the very top. You could use the grapple gun, shoot yourself up to the top of the tower, and then you can use the grapple gun to pull up the weapon crate here to you, and then you could switch your weapon to something else so that you're ready for whatever battle. I think it would make the grapple gun a lot more useful, and I think it would just bring a whole new dynamic to the game. So this is probably the thing I'm most excited about with this trailer, if that's true. And I think we're being heavily teased for that being true, but obviously this could just be a cinematic thing. We don't have any confirmation, but I don't think there'd be a reason to show this if that wasn't what was happening here. So we jump ahead a little bit, just to kind of point out, I do think that it's pretty cool that Rare is having their 40th anniversary. So maybe we'll see some cool, Rare specific anniversary stuff in the Pirate Emporium or in the Outpost shops. We've gotten stuff like that in the past, like with the Bear and Bird and Viva Pinata, ship sets, and all that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll get some in to celebrate the 40th anniversary. Maybe not, who knows. But we jump ahead. We have the new faction here, which is supposed to be like the Smugglers faction. To me, this feels like it should have been the Dark Brethren, but maybe this is like a front for the Dark Brethren. Because this guy definitely feels like he kind of gives off vibes of like being like a Duke Light. And this is kind of like the Lorena Light. Like they're both kind of smaller versions of what the Bilge Rats were before. So you see here, one of the biggest things to pull out from this part of the trailer is you notice that they're in caves, and that's going to be something that I'm going to bring up a little bit later in this trailer. But just keep it in mind, in the back of your mind, that they are hanging around in these caves throughout all of these trailers. The other thing you notice here is we have a new type of treasure item with these gold bottle rum, or whatever it is. And it's basically just kind of like another merchant crate. I'm assuming it'll probably have the same kind of properties as those other merchant crates, but just a little bit of a different design. And then you also see it has this little design on here that you'll also see on the gunpowder kegs later on in the trailer. One thing that I think would be cool, and obviously this is cinematic, but it would be cool if like this was like a treasure item, but then maybe you could actually take some of the bottles out and like drink it or something, and then maybe it gives you like a special ability for a short amount of time. So maybe it'd be something where it's like kind of similar to some of the other treasure items we have in the game, where it's both a treasure item, but it's also a utility item that you could actually use. What that special thing would be, hard to say, I have no idea. But just something that could be cool with this if they were to go down that path. So you see here that it says a new role to play. I think what that's meant to be is just to say that this is going to be a new faction in the game. Later on in the trailer, and I'll point it out again when we get there, it says that we're getting new voyages, and the way that they have voyages set up now, as opposed to back in the day of Sea of Thieves, voyages are now tied to the trading companies, or they're considered special voyages. That's how it is set up in the quest table. So you go to like the trading company, and then you select the voyage from there, or you go to the special voyages tab. So I think this is clearly meant to say that the Smugglers Tide, or the Smugglers Group, or whatever they're going to be called, is going to be a new faction kind of similar to other trading companies in the game. So we move forward, and this one I thought was a very interesting shot because if you don't recognize this place, you might just think it's just some generic looking place in the game. But this is actually Wanda's Refuge. There's a cave at Wanda's Refuge where it's Wanda's workshop, and this was back from the Cursed Sales campaign. And you can see a lot of stuff here if you've actually been here. It's in the main part of the island on the ground level. You can go through and you'll find like this little crack in the wall that you can kind of slip through. And then once you make it back here, you'll see this area. And there's actually a skull around here. I think it's this skull that you can interact with, and it'll actually open this door, and you can go back to the room that's back there. So it seems like the smugglers are taking up camp in a lot of different caves across the Sea of Thieves world, which I think is a really cool aspect that they're doing with this faction, as opposed to just adding another faction at the outpost. We saw with season 15 of Sea of Thieves that the Hunter's Call was added to the normal outpost, but also they had their sea post. I feel like that kind of ruined a little bit the specialness of the Hunter's Call because the sea posts were kind of cool because that's where you went to find the Hunter's Call at. Now they're kind of just found everywhere. So if these smuggler groups are just like, you have to kind of go to them specifically at these caves and everything like that, I think that would be a really cool aspect of this faction. And it would be kind of similar to what we have with the Reaper's Bones, where you have to go out of your way to go find them. You have to go to Reaper's hideout to visit the Reaper's Bones. So I think this might be something similar to that, and I'm pretty excited for that aspect of this. So then you see the unveiling of the new kegs that we have in here. So these kegs are interesting. You know, they're a bit bigger than the normal kegs that we have, and obviously they're vertical. They look more like barrels than kegs. And you see the unique symbol on them that is supposed to kind of represent this new smugglers faction. Otherwise, there's not much to say about them, I don't think. I think this is also supposed to be a new treasure item, probably just a new trinket for this group, but maybe I'm wrong on that. So, new explosive loot, that's what this is. And one thing that you can see that's interesting, and later on in this video I have some other evidence to show about why I think this is going to be another feature that we have, but it seems like the big feature with these kegs and why it makes it more special than, say, just the normal kegs that we have at a skeleton fort, or like the Athena gunpowder kegs or the stronghold kegs, any of those, is that these have a fuse on them that it seems like we might be able to make longer if we want. So one of the examples that I gave in the live stream was you could potentially have these set up, say, at the sovereign tent if you're tucking out the sovereign tent, and you could have the fuse, running along the dock so that you're all the way hidden far away, safely away from everything. And then once you see the people start loading up the treasure there, you just light the fuse and it starts going down the dock until it explodes in the sovereign tent. I think that would be pretty cool if that's the feature and what they're going for with this. And I guess while we're talking about it, we might as well just go ahead and jump in over here. This is kind of what I'm talking about. So leading up to the trailer being released, Sea of Thieves was showing off some teasers, and they were really highlighting this fuse here. So you can see the fuse kind of sparking and kind of wrapping around stuff, going through things. We see some of the new treasure items with those bottles that ended up being in the crate. Again, you see the fuse kind of roping around there. And even giving more credence, I think, is this final one that they have here, where you can actually see the burn marks that are left. So you can see kind of like the path that was going on. And I think that's what one of the big features of this new season is going to be, is that you can actually have fuses that you can kind of lead however you want, however far you need to go, and then you could light them wherever you are. I think that would be extremely fun to have. Is that enough to carry a season? No idea. I'm hoping there's a lot more to all this, but that would be a really cool feature. I could see a ton of possibilities to use it for. It also depends on how obvious it is to see or not, because if it's very obvious to see, then it's not going to be really that effective, but I can see it being a great use for here. So you can actually see like the final part of this where it's leading up to all the big kegs to explode, and then that was it before we got the trailer. So that's pretty cool. But that's kind of my theory with those and like what those Caesars are trying to represent and what this keg and like what actually makes it special. I think it's those fuse and like that fuse system to be able to kind of, you know, map it wherever you want to go. So kind of mapping it along like a path and stuff. So we shall see with that. But let's keep moving forward with this trailer. So again, we got to see the Reaper boat again with that. This gets into the new voyages that we see. So this obviously shows that the voyage to get these new kegs can be found on land or in like shipwrecks and stuff. Whether this is just emergent counters or for voyages is going to need to be determined. So I could see this being both ways, where you might be able to find these kegs just, you know, existing in the world naturally, or it might be a situation where you have to specifically go out of your way to do one of these voyages to find these new kegs. So keep playing there, and you can see they say right here, embark on new smuggling voyages. I like that they specifically say voyages, so it's not just one gunpowder voyage that we're talking about here, it's multiple. So I'm really hoping what this means is that the gunpowder keg thing here that we have, which we don't know if that's what's going to be called, it might be a whole new type of explosive name, but that I think is just going to be one specific voyage for the smuggling faction. I think there's going to be multiple voyages that range from different things. It's probably going to be something similar to like what we got with the trade routes for the Merchants Alliance, where maybe you have to go and find someone on one island, you have to get like rum from one place to another place or something like that. It's probably just going to be more of like a cargo transportation type of faction, if I were to guess. So see the kegs here again, using the grapple gun. Obviously this is more just cinematic. Obviously it doesn't really look like this when you're using the grapple gun, but you know, it's fun. Outside of that, there's not too much. Obviously you can stack a lot of these, and I guess the one main thing that you could pull from some of these things is that you could stack the kegs on top of each other. That's what it looks like you can do from all of these that we've seen so far. Again, still cinematic, but you can't really stack kegs on top of each other. You can kind of group them together, but you can't stack them like what they're doing here. So it's an interesting idea. Very interesting update, a little bit of an odd update. I'd go more in depth about my thoughts on that in that reaction video, so I'll link that for y'all. But to wrap it up here, we see towards the end of this video, big explosion. I don't think it's really that mind-blowing of an explosion, especially if we're supposed to consider that all those kegs that we just saw in the previous shot were the ones that were in there. That's not really that big of an explosion if that's what we're talking about. If you compare it to something like, you know, one or two stronghold kegs, or especially the Athena stronghold kegs, isn't that impressive. So it's going to be interesting to see what the point of these new kegs are. So that basically covers everything with that. The new season's going to be releasing in August, and the only other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I missed it because it came out after I'd finished the live stream, but Mike Chapman, one of the creators of Sea of Thieves, came out and gave it just a little bit more thoughts on the new season and the trailer, and he said that shipwrecked in the Sea of Thieves, the Smugglers League are bringing explosive deception to the waves in our next season. I'm excited to see the sandbox dynamics this creates. Lots more to share soon. So, some interesting thoughts with that. I think that definitely helps confirm that this is going to be a new faction in the game called the Smugglers League. And one of the things that we talked about in the live stream is I think this is supposed to be an expansion on what we got with Season 14. So if you were to think about the Reaper's Bones being like the aggressive PvP faction, where it's the people that want to go full steam ahead, you know, take their ship, go and fight directly, Reaper's Bones, that's the faction for you. But there's another side of PvP that is always been a part of the game. It's been a part since the very beginning, but really hasn't been made official as part of the game. Season 14 was trying to make that a little bit more official, but it was really more just adding new tools. It wasn't really giving it a permanent place in the game. And that's like the sneaking and tucking side of PvP. I think the Smugglers League could potentially be that side of the game. I might be wrong on this. It might literally just be carrying stuff between different islands. That could literally be just what all the voyages are. But I think some of the tools and teasers that we saw with like that weapons crate, and I'm really thinking, I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I would be very surprised if that's not what that is, and that it was just like a nothing scene. I think we're gonna get that weapons crate, and that would be huge for Tuckers and all that stuff. I think giving a faction for leveling up that encourages tucking and sneaking around and all that kind of stuff would be a big boost to the game and really help solidify a playstyle that's been a part of the game from the very beginning. Probably should have released with Season 14, but I'm glad that it's coming in now. I'm very interested to see what else they have to talk about with the Smugglers League in the future. But that covers everything you need to know about the new season. I decided to just remake this video because when I went back to rewatch the live stream at the very beginning of the live stream, it was kind of cutting out here and there. It was kind of lagging a bit. So it just made a little bit more sense to kind of streamline the video for those that just wanted a strict breakdown of it. But if you want to hear my reaction or what people thought and me commenting on people's thoughts about the new season announcement, definitely go check out that live stream. I'll have it linked here as one of the end screen cards. But that's all I have for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you left a like and subscribed. And until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye, y'all.